Hi everybody and welcome back to class. It's Mark, and if you watched the first video that I put out for this class, I mentioned during that time that I would do these occasionally when I thought they were necessary, and I think this is one of those times. This is being recorded on Sunday, February the 19th. Of course, your first draft of Writing Project Due is due this evening, but after fielding a number of questions from students, I thought it was time to do another video to explain a few of the finer points about this assignment because there seems to be a small amount of confusion, nothing we can't overcome. So I'm going to go over what we're doing in this class session, but I'm also going to backtrack a little bit so we can talk about the next essay further. So first, let's jump into what we are doing for the week that begins on February 20th. So I'm going into class sessions, and we will be working in class session 6, which is the peer response and analysis for your first draft. Now remember, the draft that you're turning in tonight, Sunday the 19th, is only a draft. It's not a final version, and you'll get plenty of chances to get feedback from me and the other students in the class before the final version is due. So after watching this, if you watch it after today, and you think you didn't quite exactly get it right, that's okay. There's plenty of time to go back and correct. There's one chapter in the textbook to be read, avoiding common problems in style, etc. There's a supplemental practice activity on common sentence level problems. And that's important because you also have to do a grammar quiz. So as I have recommended in the past, do the practice activity first, then jump directly into the quiz. You'll do great. Anything that's listed as supplemental means you don't have to do it if you don't want to. You'll probably find it helpful, but if you're pressed for time or you simply think you already know all of the information about that subject, you can skip over it. We've already started the discussion board for this session over everyday rhetorical analysis, and I've enjoyed reading those, and I don't know that I've gotten through all of them that have been posted so far, but they're pretty entertaining. And then, of course, we will also be doing peer response, peer feedback on the first drafts that will be turned in this evening. Before I go on to learning activities, let me point this out. I did it in the first video, but I'll do it again. Tutor.com is a site where you can turn in a draft of one of your writing projects, and within about 24 hours, you'll get feedback from someone else who has read your submission, suggested things you need to correct, given you some praise on things you did well, and it's free. So if you ever go into a writing assignment thinking, there's something wrong with this, I'm just not sure what it is, or I want someone else to give this a look, go ahead and turn it into tutor.com. They'll read it, give you feedback within 24 hours, and as I mentioned, it's free. You really can't go wrong. And if you do use tutor.com, send me a text and let me know what your experience was like. All right, we'll jump into the learning activities. Of course, there is your textbook. Everyone knows that by now. Here is the practice grammar activity, and here are the supplemental resources, links to Purdue OWL. Purdue OWL, it stands for the Online Writing Lab. If you have a question about how do I cite something, what should my references or my works cited page look like, go to Purdue OWL. It is one of the best sources in the country for answers to questions on MLA. The other supplemental resource, Principles of Peer Response, I don't think this one is as necessary. Everyone seems to be doing a pretty good job with peer response. Now we'll go into the assignments and assessments. And again, I'm covering this brief because we've been in this class for a little while now, and I know you know the routine. We've already started this discussion board, and of course, there is your quiz. And here is the rubric, the instructions for Writing Project 2 Peer Response. Now, here's where I'm going to go a little off the path, and we're going to go into class session 5, the previous one, to look at the instructions for Writing Project 2. The whole purpose of Writing Project 2 is to compare two articles that are largely based on the same subject. That doesn't mean they're identical, and it doesn't even mean that they agree with one another. Your first article that you should review is the one that you used for Writing Project 1. And then I want you to go and find another one that's on the same subject. Remember, these are arranged in folders by subject that has some connection to the first article, and you compare the two. And I got off the beaten path myself, and I didn't find what I was looking for the first time around. I think it must be in here. Okay, sorry about that. I had to hit pause for a second. I'm opening up Writing Project 2, Comparative Analysis. And here I'm going to make a small change on what you'll be doing. As you know, and as it says, you analyze 2 of the core readings. The 2 articles that you use to compare must come from the core readings. If you find something else that's on subject that you want to reference, great. But the basis of this should be comparing 2 articles from the core readings that are on the same subject. 750 words for your draft. We'll hit 1,000 or so, maybe more, on the final version. Remember, you can always go over the maximum word count. You can't go under the minimum word count. Now here's one change that I'm going to make for this project, and I may carry this over in the future, we'll see. I didn't see a great deal of value in the purpose statement in the first writing project. It's not that you did it poorly. I just thought it was a little less necessary. So for this writing project, I'm going to remove that as a requirement. Go directly into your draft. You don't have to write this. And of course, for the draft, you are only following steps 1 through 6, and then you stop. After you turn it in and you get feedback from me and from the other people in the class, then you will follow steps 7 through 10. And again, you can skip the purpose statement. You don't need it. Now, I also put something in here, and by the way, print this out and refer to it as you're working on your writing project. I put in something over here in the Resources tab that I think you're going to find helpful. Sample student papers. Take a look at this. Now, of course, in every writing project, there's always a sample student paper that's there for you to reference if you just want to know what should this look and feel like. Oh, went to the wrong folder. Let me back out. This one. So again, Resources tab, Sample Student Papers, Comparative Analysis. This is the one that Blackboard put in automatically. This one, called Mr. Student, is one that was actually turned into me in a previous class. And I took the student's name off of it. And I'm not going to say that this is a perfect paper, but it's pretty well done. And I want to take a look at a couple of things that I thought made this a better type of paper. First of all, everyone's pretty good at this. There are a couple that are still working on format. You always start with what they call the MLA header, which is your name, then my name. And by the way, I know you're trying to be polite. Don't put professor. Don't put Mr. Mark. Just my name, first and last name. That's all you need. Then the class name, then the date. And remember, date first, then month, then year. The title is centered. That's great. All the paragraphs are indented. That's great too. Those are the little things I look at before I get into the context of what you've written. And I'll also point out, a couple of folks need a little help with this. This student wrote about 2 articles, Does the Internet Make You Smarter by Clay Shirky, and Does the Internet Make You Dumber, which I thought was very clever because he's examining both sides of the issue, makes you smarter, makes you dumber. Great comparison. And notice he uses their first and last name, Clay Shirky and Nicholas Carr, when he first introduces them. But from that point on, he only refers to them by their last name, Carr or Shirky, which is how you're supposed to do it. Just use the person's last name. Never use their first name. You can occasionally use first and last name, as he does here, but for the most part, we're only going to refer to the author by their last name. Here's another thing that this student did well. Look at this sentence. Shirky writes. First of all, he's using his last name. Second of all, he's not starting at the beginning of the sentence that he's quoting. If you're not starting off with the sentence in the text as it appeared, you tell me that by using these three dots, which have a name and they're called an ellipsis. Use the ellipsis and then jump into the section of the sentence that you're using because you're not using the whole sentence. And if you're telling me, Carr writes, reading a long sequence of pages, etc., you don't have to put in a citation right here at the end because you've already told me who said it. So if you're introducing the sentence with the author's name, don't put in a citation at the end. It's unnecessary. It's kind of redundant. And look at this works cited page. It's done very well. There's probably a little too much space here, but that's minor. And it should be works cited plural with an S because he does have two of them. Again, a minor mistake. I never said this paper was perfect, but it's pretty good. This is centered. The first line is a line to the left. The second line is indented. There's a few folks in the class that get this a little backwards where they indent the first line and have the second line over here. Okay, now you know. I'll look for that in excuse me, I'll look for that going forward. But this is pretty good format. That's how it should look. Read that paper. It's not too bad. Let's go back into the class session. I know we covered what we're going to be doing, but I want to take one more look around before I conclude this. So again, by tonight, you're only turning in a draft. It's not a final version. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you turn in some content, it's only worth 15 points. You turn in some content and it's something that I feel like I can work with and give you a decent review and that others in the class can also give you some decent feedback on, I'm going to give you the points. I actually do more exact grading when I get to the final version. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. That's where I really look at things in depth. But for a draft, not so much. It just has to be something that we can work with. So again, finish off the discussion board on rhetorical analysis. Make sure you not only post your original thread, but that you comment on the thread of at least 2 other students. 2 is the minimum. If you want to do more, that's great. I love to see the student interaction, but you don't have to comment on what everyone has said. Just do at least 2. 3 is even better. 4 is great, but 2 is the minimum. Make sure you take the practice grammar activity before you take the grammar exercise. You'll do great. Those are easy points. Make sure you pick up on those. And absolutely do Project 2 peer writing or peer response. You will, of course, get feedback from me. If you have trouble seeing the comments that I have written on your draft, let me know. I'll help you out with that. Again, I will send you back the document with my comments on them. If you simply open the document, you probably won't see them. Save it to your desktop and then open it, and you should be able to see everything that I've commented upon. Again, you don't have to agree with everything I said. If you disagree with me, that's fine. It's your paper, not mine. But these are suggestions on how I think you can make it better. So if your draft is due on the 19th, that means you get a whole week to polish this thing up, make the corrections that you think you need. And if you want to have someone else look at it, besides me and besides the people in the class, use tutor.com. I think that wraps it up. I'll probably do another one of these down the road, but I thought this one was important. I hope everyone has a great week. I'll see you around.